мы будем, ну, точнее, докладчики будут выступать один за другим в течение 15 минут. Потом даем минуту на вопросы и, собственно, еще минуту следующий докладчик выходит, готовится и выступает. Так, это что касается первого организационного. Второй организационный вопрос. Вот у меня есть приложенька, получается, выглядит она примерно так. То есть я засекаю время, вот и за 5 минут до конца я вам напоминаю, ну и в конце еще раз напоминаю. Поэтому, если вы вдруг видите, что не успеваете, получается, ну, делайте как-то шорткат из последних там слайдов, вот, выносите основную мысль, ну, чтобы успеть вложиться. Да. Нет, приложенька это не я сам писал, я, кроме того, пока наливал себе кофе, нашел ее, скачал, посмотрел, вроде работает. Вот. Да, конечно. Меньше можно, больше нежелательно, потому что все-таки хотим вложиться в конкретные сроки. Так, запись еще не идет, да? Уже идет. Хорошо, всем привет. Мы начинаем наши презентации в рамках Rolling Scopes. И первый доклад Артем Змитрович.
Team of 15. We create landing pages, analytical tools, and internal instruments for the Department of Foreign Contact of our organization. And today I'm here answering your questions and going to talk about Agile. I'm sure you've heard the term Agile being used here and there in organizations of all shapes and color and sizes, and there are Agile projects and Agile project managers involved in Agile teams, and Agile organizations use and have Agile workplaces. They have Agile leadership, and Agile practitioners say they can make an organization leaner, more efficient, and even make or save more money in their turn. But there is even an Agile manifesto. And you may ask, what does all of this Agile mean? Simply put, Agile software development is a methodology. Agile software development is a set of values and principles that are used for software development, under which requirements and solutions evolve through the collaborative effort of self-organizing cross-functional teams. What is a cross-functional team? It is, in other words, a squad. Cross-functional team is a group of people that have different functional expertise and work together toward a common goal. One of the big success factors here and there in different companies is the agile engineering culture. Culture tends to be invisible. We don't see it because it's there all the time, kind of like the air we breathe. But if we are if we understand the culture, or we are more likely to be able to keep it and even strengthen it as we grow. So Agile team is a squad. They usually work together, they sit together, and they have end-to-end responsibility to what they build, to what they design, maintain, deploy, and so on. They have a long-term mission, such as make a product the best place for something. And it is autonomous. They decide what to build, how to build it, and how to work together while doing it. But there are, of course, some limitations, some boundaries, such as the squad mission, the overall product strategy for what area they are working on, and short-term goals that are renegotiated every quarter. A quarter in Agile is usually a week or two. Here the typical Agile team area. They sit together, working with the access to each other's screen. They gather over here in the lounge for things like planning or retrospectives. And back there is a huddle room for smaller meetings or just to get some quiet time. Almost all walls are whiteboards because they are great in expression ideas. If you come back to the autonomy, you may ask why it is so important. Well, autonomy is motivating, and motivated people create better stuff. Also, it makes us fast by letting decisions happen locally in the squad instead of a bunch of managers and committees. It helps us to minimize handoffs while waiting. So that has been around since 2001. Agile was originally created as a set of values and principles that were opposed to the directly contrasted, traditionally really rigid waterfall planning approach. In traditional project management, the project must be planned, the plan must be approved, and the product must be created according to the approved plan. Any deviations from that plan can result in cost overruns and deadlines to be missed, which is never a good thing for a project manager and can be the death knell for the success of the project. These processes that were being used were seen as focusing on the plan instead of the focusing on the product itself or the customer's needs. Unlike traditional waterfall project management, where a project is carefully planned and organized and executed according to a set plan, Agile projects release the most valuable features first. Then Agile teams go back and update those features frequently. In contrast, Agile projects are always at work and in work and are expected to have many changes. It also became popular with software developers because it freed up time for development creativity. If the product is agile and the customer needs a change in the product or new information is discovered that could improve the end result, the agile team can change their direction to be more in line with the product, with the customer's needs. The product may even change completely, which is strictly prohibited in traditional waterfall project management. Back in the 90s, IT projects were managed by the waterfall methodology, where they executed a task cascaded from analyzing the requirements to designing, implementation, testing, and rollout. Although the approach was exceedingly structured and organized, clients were not satisfied. In fact, what was happening that most of the parts of the project were out of the budget, out of time and scope and quality, and clients were dissatisfied. Even when projects were on time, within budget and scope and of good quality, clients were still dissatisfied. But why? Simply because what they asked for was not necessarily they really needed. That was the case until some software practitioners decided to gather together in 2001 in ski resort in Utah, United States, where they came up with the Agile Manifesto, a new mindset that is focusing on 4 values and 12 principles. The values are individuals and interactions over processes and tools, working software over comprehensive documentation, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, and responding to change over following a plan. And the values are as follows, principles. There are 12 of them. Customer satisfaction, embracing changes, speed delivery, collaboration, improvement, effective communication, good metrics, steadiness, operational excellence, simplicity, self-organizing, and continuous improvements. Today, thanks to those 17 innovative visionaries, we can, through the adopting of agile mindset, embrace changes and improve performance, as well as reach customer satisfaction, which is important because customer involvement is critical to the success of an agile project. One of the concepts and premises of agile is that we get continuous feedback from our customers. We are going to be delivering product in very short cycles, and we require our customers to provide feedback at all times. If we are able to get that feedback in a continuous way from our customers, we are definitely more agile. By motivating and inspiring team members to be more creative, by lowering project costs and shortening schedules, agile has proved to be a popular and viable project strategy as opposed to standard requirements gathering, plan-driven project management, that waterfall was. But at this very place, I do need to draw your attention to emphasize that agile success comes from working differently, not from working faster. Agile, waterfall, your organization can use both in implementing your projects. There are some criteria or considerations that we would ask our customers to think about before choosing this or those strategy. The scope. Is your scope always changing, or is it stable? The experience that you have of the solutions and of the people on your team, how huge is it? The resources. Can they be dedicated to an agile type project, or are they gathered in the same place? Can they be co-located, or do you have a distributed network that you have to work with? Customer involvement. Can they provide that continuous feedback that is crucial, that is critical to the agile software development strategy? The timelines. Are they fixed due dates, or do we have flexibility that we can provide to our customers? And the last but not least is the documentation requirements. Do we have any compliance or regulatory requirements that restrict our ability to reduce documentation, or can we start to streamline what we typically see on untypical projects? If you can find yourself more on the innovative side, agile may be for you. If not, it's okay, you can continue to do waterfall. I'm afraid time's up, so thanks for watching, and be sure to check out more about agile. The topic is quite ample. Please ask your questions if some aspects were not enlightened enough in my speech. I would be grateful to have a discussion on them. I'm Artem Zmitrovich, product manager in a team of 15. Until next time.
Any questions? Okay, you said in your slides that customers sometimes can give you some feedbacks and maybe sometimes change the necessity of some points. How often do you face this behavior?
Of nasty things,
when customer changes something in the project.
Well, Yeah, our world is changing, so almost every week we have stand-ups and stand-up meetings, and then we find out that the scope is changing, so we need to be more in line with the customers' needs.
Okay, thanks. Okay, our next speaker is Pavel Zamulko.
Okay, hello, I'm Pavel Zamulko. Today I'm going to tell you about WebGL and a library for 3JS. Mostly not about how to use it, but what to Google when you need it, and why the hell you could need this stuff. First of all, when you need it when you want to put a video card on a client side to work. Most of time it's for rendering some complex 3D graphics, but sometimes if you do some major business analytics project and you need to some data be refactored on the client side, you can do it through WebGL by loading it all through shaders on video board, but not on the CPU. Shortly, about to better understand what is it and how it works, I can show you some hierarchy. It's not official, it's made by me, but it's really good to put it on inside your head. First of all comes OpenGL. It's not even some programming library, it's just a specification for hardware vendors about which functions should be implemented on their hardware. Every vendor create his own implementation of OpenGL in form of video card drivers. Then we add some JavaScript code to control this, to make browser able to address OpenGL, and we get WebGL. But it's still explicitly verbose, it's still not user-friendly, and so we wrap it all into some more JavaScript code to get 3JS library. So, what is OpenGL? I already mostly said. It's a specification, stands for Open Graphic Library. What is WebGL? WebGL, it's a browser IP. It's nowadays works in most of all browsers, as I know, except Opera Mini. But people who use Opera Mini cares more about traffic, not about some beauty, and you can just ignore them. And how to plug in raw WebGL. Raw WebGL is context of canvas element, so you just need to create somewhere in your document canvas and hook up to it through JavaScript, check if WebGL are present on the client sides, and then comes renders, shaders. Shaders, it's a small programs written on a C-like language. They have a lot of math inside. There are two kinds of shaders, the vertex shader and the fragment shader. Vertex shader tells about corners of your figure, of your object, and the fragment shader tells you about which color does every pixel of object have. So it's very hard to understand, it's hard to work with them, so better use 3JS to ease your work. 3JS, it's a library. It's plugged in like just some JS script into your page, and then you begin to work with it. But it doesn't hook up to Canvas. You just create some document, render 3JS object, and append it as child to some piece on the page. Mostly so, what I want to say. If you have some questions. No?
Do you have some Leaf examples? Or?
Yes, I have some brief examples.
Yeah, sure, you have time.
The first one is example about why did I said that WebGL is completely not user-friendly. Because you see, to create pretty simple rotating cube, you need to write some code, then some more. Then here comes shaders, and at the end, you see you got 500 lines of code just to create small rotating cube. For example, the code which I show in my presentation was doing the same. Yes, here it is. It's a code on 3GL.js. And okay, I was going to show some beauty, but the link seems to be broken.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's very interesting. Okay, we've got first one here. Okay, our next speaker is Anna Herasimchuk. And I want to tell something about 3GS. Do you know Sergey Zdubnov? Of course. Okay. We have time. I will speak in Russian. Sorry, потому что сейчас не хочу думать про английский немножко. Вот. В общем, да, все знают Сергея Здубнова, то есть мы с ним читаем лекции. И в частности, вот он занимался 3GS и свой диплом, то есть он защищал тоже по этой технологии. Вот. Получается, что он делал в рамках своего проекта, достаточно интересную штуку. Получается, конечной точкой проекта была, точнее была демонстрация, вот, когда у нас был кораблик, то есть и наш кораблик управлялся с помощью жестов. То есть на тебя была направлена камера, вот, весь кораблик был в 3D, полностью нарисован, да, с помощью 3GS. Вот, он делал вот так рукой, кораблик поворачивал там в одну сторону, да, делал вот так рукой, кораблик поворачивал в другую сторону. И, короче, таким образом можно было управлять кораблем, то есть с помощью движения. Вот, библиотека очень классная, для тех, кто интересуется моделированием особенно. То есть там еще было помимо самого 3GS, и вообще отрисовки, да, там еще был захват и WebRTC всякие там обработчики. Окей, Аня.
One second. Do I sound well? I think I do. So I will tell you about TypeScript, which is an object-oriented programming language introduced by Microsoft in 2012. It's open source and is being developed on GitHub. TypeScript is a superset of ECMAScript 2015, which means JS program is a valid TypeScript program, and actually TypeScript can be compiled easily to JS. How can we declare a variable in TypeScript? Pretty the same as in JS. It can be a var, which will hoist to the top, will be globally available, and we will be able to redeclare it. Or this may be letter const, which will only be available in the block where they are declared. They won't hoist, and we won't be able to redeclare them. Having borrowed all of the data types from JavaScript, TypeScript still has introduced a few new data types. We still are able to work with booleans, accepting true and false numbers with decimals, hexadecimals, and so on, strings, accepting the template strings. And here on the slide, I will only pay your attention to how the syntax of the variable declaration has changed. We now use the keyword, letter, const, or var, then the name, then a colon, the type, and the value that you assign. Arrays are pretty much like in JavaScript, with the only difference that in JavaScript we were supposed to, we could store values of different types within a single array, whereas by default in TypeScript we're supposed to store values of the same type within a single array. There is a workaround for that, but I will show later. A tuple is a newly introduced type in TypeScript. It's very much like an array with only the predefined data types accepted. For example, if you declare a tuple accepting a string and a number, then you should initialize it with the string, then a number, not vice versa, and not with any other types. Enum is a helpful addition in TypeScript, pretty much like in other languages like C#. This is a more convenient way of giving names to sets of values. New types, any means any, means when we don't know what value to expect, when it's kind of a dynamic. And here's the workaround that I wanted to talk about, is that we still can store values of different types within a single array if we declare it with the type of any. If an array is any, then you are welcome to store any values. On the contrary, void is no value at all. You can think of it as a function that will return no value. And a variable being assigned the type of void, the same as null and undefined, on itself won't be very useful because you won't be able to assign any value other than undefined or null to them. Never is also a new type introduced in TypeScript, means values that never occur. Think of it as a function that will never return or that will throw an exception. Type assertions in TypeScript are pretty much like typecast in other languages. This is purely done by the compiler in the runtime for convenience. It doesn't have any structure changing impact. We're still able to work with functions in TypeScript, but what has changed? First of all, we are able to work with arrow functions. This is a superset of ES6. Then the types have been introduced, which means the functions will have types, required optional parameters, and so on. What is a function type? This is first of all the type of the function itself. Like here, it's number. It means it will return the value of number type, and the types of the arguments that it accepts. One more convenience that we had in JavaScript is that we could pass as many parameters into the function as we wanted. If we passed more than needed, then the rest would be just ignored. If we passed less, then they would be assigned the value of undefined by default. In TypeScript, you cannot do that. You need to pass as many arguments as you've declared. You will get an error if you pass less, and if you pass more, you will get an error as well. There is a workaround for that, using an optional parameter, which means if the value is passed, use a question mark for that. And the default parameters will get the default value if you don't pass anything. Traditional JavaScript uses the prototype-based approach to support the object-oriented paradigm. Later, starting from ES6, we're able to use classes. TypeScript also allows us to work with classes. We can create a class, create its instance, and even extend it. I mean, create a new instance and to support one of the basic principles of object-oriented programming, inheritance. It's done using the keyword extends. A newly introduced feature in TypeScript, interfaces. What is specific about type checking in TypeScript is that it checks for the shape that the values have. It means that I did some changes in the presentation to make it look better, but it looks worse now. Actually, there is an interface having the value, the field label of type string, and it's used in the function as an argument. And if it is used like that, it means when you will be passing your parameters to the function, it will check that the value you pass has the field label of type string, like here. So it's kind of a template. Again, it's moved aside a little. So what about the benefits of TypeScript? It has introduced classes, interfaces, and modal support. It has introduced static type checking, so it will always check for what you declare, what you pass, what you call. It's a superset of JavaScript, and moreover, it's a superset of ECMAScript 2015, which means you can make use of its newest features. It has syntax similarity to backend languages, which is convenient for understanding, convenient refactoring tools, and for the minuses. Still, JavaScript has more support. TypeScript still takes some time to be compiled to JavaScript, and having introduced so many new features like data types, it has become less flexible and dynamic because of that. Thank you. That's it. Thank you.
Okay, any questions, guys? Yeah, I've got one. Questions? Okay, a small question. You talked about interfaces, that we've got something to show, yeah, in function, for example, and pass some kind of strict object. And what if we do not have the field which is implemented in interface? Do you know?
No, actually. If you do know, you can share your knowledge.
No, I'm just wondering.
No.
Yeah, I'm really interested. Okay, so if no more questions, thank you.
Is TypeScript have a type of object type, which will be extended by string type and others?
Sorry, once again, what does it have?
Is TypeScript have a object type?
Talking. I don't know actually.
No.
Maybe no.
Because we have interface which every property is provided. Okay. Any questions? No, thanks. Okay, our next speaker is Daniil. Время для небольших лирических отступлений. Вот. Значит, вообще TypeScript достаточно полезная штука. И я вот хочу спросить у Ани, имеет ли смысл использовать TypeScript вообще вне привязки к какому-либо другому фреймворку? Ну вот чисто pure TypeScript. Чисто pure TypeScript. Вот. Ну хорошо, и вот какие вообще бывают, как вы думаете, самые популярные ошибки вот именно JavaScript-ера, которые позволяют, именно если взять какой-нибудь язык программирования, в котором есть именно типизация, да, вот какие ошибки вот в JavaScript могут быть avoid? Что? Ну, в частности.
Ras. Hi guys, my name is Daniil, and today I'd like to tell you about the canvas. And I suppose that many of you have already known about it, but today I want you to forget about the canvas and imagine that it's your first time you hear about it, as me when I was preparing this presentation. Okay, canvas element is used to draw graphics on the web page. Canvas has several methods for drawing passes, boxes, circles, text, and adding images. And there are what Canvas can. Draw graphics. Canvas has great features for graphical data presentation. Draw text. It can draw colorful text with or without animation. Of course, Canvas can be animated. It's one of the greatest features, from simple bouncing balls to complex animations. Canvas can be interactive. Canvas can respond to JavaScript events as escape press, mouse click, and so on. And of course, it can be used in games. And do you know the first thing I did when I started to prepare this presentation? As a not native speaker, I asked Google, what does canvas mean? Because I don't know. And canvas is a rectangular surface for oil painting like this in the picture. And then I imagined myself as a painter, which stand on the picture's seaside and drawing the sea waves because it's my passion and it's me, if you know. But why do I do it in script tag? That's because all drawing on the canvas must be done with JavaScript. By default, canvas is just a rectangular area on the HTML page, and by default, canvas has no border and no content. And then I started to draw. First of all, I've created a canvas tag in HTML body and set an ID to canvas for more simplicity. Then in script tag, I get my canvas by ID from the document object model, and get context method return the drawing context on the canvas. I started with simple scenes as a line. Canvas is a two-dimensional grid, and the upper left corner of the canvas has coordinate 0, 0. Move to method, move the start. What? Move to method, move the starting point on this grid. And line to method will draw an invisible line from the starting point to the point that we will set in parameters here. And stroke method, sorry. And stroke method will draw this line, make it visible. Okay, lines also has some properties. I'll show you some of them. For example, line join and line cap. We can set one of 3 parameters here, and also we can set an integer to line width. As you can see, almost all methods and properties on the canvas look like self-talking or self-speaking. I don't know how truly. And you can easily understand what does it mean. You can see here. Okay, let's go on. Rectangles. To draw a rectangle on the canvas, we have 2 methods, stroke rect method and fill rect method. Both of them have 4 parameters. We can set the upper left corner of rectangle with X and Y, and also we can set width and height of rectangle. Stroke rect method will draw an outline of rectangle, and fill rect method will draw a filled rectangle. Also, we can draw circles and arcs here. Begin pass method begins a pass or reset the current pass if we draw something before. Arc method creates arcs, and it used to create circles or parts of circles. To create a circle, we need to set start angle to 0 and end angle to 2 multiply p in radians, like in algebra. And here's an example of a circle. But all these methods like simple lines, rectangles, and circles, they are so boring, and I can even draw my sea waves, which was my aim. But also using these basic methods, we can draw something interesting. And for example, I have drawn this background on canvas. I use only for loop and canvas methods like begin pass, move to line 2, and some else. And of course some magic, because nothing would happen without magic in whole JavaScript, you know. Okay, but my aim was to draw sea waves. And to draw it, I need some more methods, as quadratic curve tool and Bezier curve tool. I don't want to tell you about boring scenes as parameters here. I just want you to know that they exist. And using these methods, I can do my waves. And here is it. I use only a for loop and Bezier curve 2 method, and no magic at all here. And I can almost swim here, but they look like not so realistically. And to improve it, Canvas has gradients. Gradients is used to fill rectangles, circles, lines, text, and so on. Shapes on the canvas are not limited to solid colors. There are two methods. Create linear gradient. What do you think? What does it do? Anybody knows? It creates linear gradient. And creates the radial gradient creates radial or circular gradient. As I said before, almost all methods look like self-talking. You can also see here the code addColorStop method. addColorStop specify the color stop and its position along the gradient. Gradient position can be anywhere between 0 to 1. And then I decided to draw my dream. The sea coast with nice woman, because I don't want to be there alone. Line by line, step by step. I was doing it all night long. It was too hard for me. But by the sunrise, I've got it. You can see here my curves, lines, circles, any shapes. Of course, I'm joking. I was not doing it all night long. I have done it in an hour. But static pictures are so boring. And then I decided to go far and deep in animations. Since we're using JavaScript to control animations on the canvas, it's also very easy to make an animation. And these are the steps you need to take to draw a frame. First of all, we need to clear the canvas. Unless the shapes you will be drawn fill the complete canvas, you need to clear any shapes that have been drawn previously. And the fillRec method will help you with it. The next step, save the canvas state. If you are changing any setting and which affect the canvas state, and you want to make sure the original state is used each time a frame is drawn, you need to save that original state. The next step, draw animated shapes. The step where you do the actual frame rendering. And the last step, restore the canvas state. If you have saved the state, restore it before drawing a new frame. We can do an animation using only a for loop. That means that when we need a way to execute our drawing functions over a period of time. And there are set interval, set timeout, and request animation frame functions, which we can use to call our specific function over a set period of time. And then I decided to improve my waves to make it animated. I use my earlier knowledge in curves and my new knowledge in animations, and that's what I've got, such strange wave with strange color. And what is it, Swiss River? Maybe the Black Sea somewhere near Odessa, you know, Zatoka, the places. I don't know, but I don't want to swim here in real life. Okay, and the last thing that I want to tell you is about my real dream by nowadays. And my real dream is to get a job at EPAM. EPAM or EPAM, I don't know. But to represent it, I will use text. To draw text on the canvas, we have two methods. Fill text method, which draw fill text, and stroke text method, which draw the text that no filled. But it's very simple, and then I decided to improve it and make it animated. And that's what I've got. As you can see, canvas animations are awesome, you know, and it's really great. And all I wanted to tell you that Canvas has great tools for drawing and doing animations, and you can easily use it in your future video games. That's all. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Any questions?
I haven't worked in Canvas yet, so that probably is not very clear for me. Well, in Canvas we have the picture that consists of few shapes, if I understand it right. Yes?
Consists of what?
Few shapes. So, for example, background, something.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And if I want to create the animation for the one shape, for example, our tree, you know, with flowing, something like that, I should clear all these canvas surface, even the static fields.
As I can say previously, if you need to save any shape, you can save it and restore it. And every frame is a new frame. But if you
so
want
I should save all these static shapes, for
Yes.
example, background, and
Yeah.
after push
yeah,
them back.
because
Okay.
you render all the canvas.
Thank you.
Transparent by default, the canvas layer is, so you can draw on different layers and clear only those on which animation takes place. It depends.
Thanks.
And our next speaker is Kirill Panov. Раз.
So hello guys, my name is Kirill and today I'm going to tell you about some words about D3.js. So I'm a little bit worried because I have, that's why I have a little cheat sheet with me. So, okay, let's go. D3.js. So this is a little plan for today. I will start with a little intro. I will tell you about JS libraries, why we need them, some of most popular of them, what is D3.js. Then I will tell some words about SVG. I will tell how to get started your project with D3. Try to tell about some base methods, and if we have time, we shall code in a simple project. And finally, I will try to show you advanced examples and best practices. So, JavaScript libraries. What is JavaScript libraries? As soon as you will become a more skilled and experienced developer, you will realize that you have some kind of a luggage of your code which you use almost in every project. So this code can be called your own JavaScript library, or not only JavaScript. So let's turn to Wiki. JavaScript library is a library of pre-written JavaScript which allows for easy development and so on and so on. So in other words, JavaScript library is code which was written by someone else, but this code you can use in your project. So what for do we need JavaScript libraries? You know, time is one of the most expensive resources in commercial development. So time is important for customer because the customer needs to get his website or an app or any working tool before his competitors. The time is also very important for development company. For example, we have two developing companies. One of them makes the project in 6 months and the other in 12 months, but all other conditions are same. So guess which company will have more profit finally? So what for do we need libraries else? We as developers, by having a pre-written solutions of most typical tasks, we can turn our mind on other tasks. For example, such tasks which need our creative mind, or we can make our code work quicker, for example. Most popular JavaScript libraries, only some of them: jQuery, Lodash, D3, Three.js, Redux, and so on. And one more thing I wanted to tell about libraries. Most of libraries have cross-browser solutions, so you don't need to spend your time for developing a cross-browser solution. And in development nature, there is a huge list of JavaScript libraries. We have thousands of JavaScript libraries, and there is even a game the students play it often. So it is an alcohol game. To play you need a good company, a lot of shots. The rules are the next. You have a host. Players one by one tell any word, and the host Googles it. If such JavaScript library exists, everybody takes a shot. So let's try without shots, of course. For example, hamster.js. As you can see, such library exists. Cheers, guys. For example, cucumber.js. We have such called library. And when you're drunk, you have tired of it, and you say, "Oh, Jesus," and the host Googles. There is such library. Cheers, guys. So, there is even a random project name generator on GitHub. We can go to this link. If you don't know how to call your JavaScript library, just push the button and Gloglify.js or Signalizer.js and so on. So let's go next. Now closer about D3.js. The official website is d3js.org. And as we can see a definition on the official website, D3.js is a JavaScript library for manipulating documents based on data. D3 helps you bring data to life using HTML, SVG, and CSS. So D3 is a JavaScript library which helps you to visualize the data, different kinds of data. Why it is so called? Because D3 is spelled from 3D letters, data-driven documents, but I want to mention not data-driven development. So let me explain. You develop an app or a website which without any link into data. So you don't know which data you will have. For example, any user statistics. You don't know what every user statistic will have. Or, for example, currency exchange. Nobody knows the currency exchange for tomorrow or what it will be in a month. So one of the key developers is Mike Bostock. This is his website. There is his citate. If we can't eliminate coding, can we at least make it easier for humans with our sausage fingers and feeder-sized brains? So he's true. He tries to make development easier for us as developers and turn our minds on different other tasks. So this is from introduction from official website. D3 allows you to bind data to a document object model. So what can you use D3 for? For visualizing any dynamic data. Some examples. Let's go, for example, to this example. It is made with help of D3.js. Let it load. Yeah. The data can be different in this example. So let's go next. What about browser support? All browsers except Internet Explorer and older versions. Now some words about SVG. So what is SVG? SVG is scalable vector graphics, an XML-based vector image format for two-dimensional graphics with support for interactivity and animations. So in other words, SVG is not an image directly. It is a set of coordinates and instructions which are sent to client's browser, and the client's browser paints an image on the client's side directly. So this is an example of SVG code. You can see an SVG container, a G container inside it, and different figures, for example, circle in this example. But it can be anything you want, for example, rectangles, lines, and so on. And in the right side of the slide, you can see how it will look in browser. So one of the advantages of SVG is that you can touch with CSS and JavaScript any part of this image. You can change colors, you can change sizes, and so on. So the advantages of SVG. It is absolutely scalable. It doesn't depend on display definition. It is a lightweight, but of course it won't be lightweight if we try to paint with SVG difficult image, for example, photo with a big number of pixels and colors. But in simple vector graphics like this, an SVG is lightweight enough. And it can be modified dynamically with JavaScript and CSS. So how to get started with D3.js? It's easy enough. For example, you can download the latest version from official website. You can link the library directly to your project. You can use CDN or NPM. As you can see, D3.js is not a lightweight library. For example, the full version weighs 458 kilobytes, and minimal version weighs about 215 kilobytes. That's why D3 allows you to use a micro libraries. So it is a part of whole library, but it contains some methods which you will need for your project. It's a good solution enough. So let's go to base methods. As we know from Lodash, all methods are divided to categories. It will help us to to find the method we need easier. For example, you can see such category like arrays, and we understand that all methods in this category concern arrays. So, base methods for selections. For example, D3 select allows you to select an HTML element, and so on. We shall try to look at some base methods below. One more important thing is all methods in D3.js are chainable. This is a link to API. So let's try to make a simple project. So I will not write the code in line. I will uncomment parts of code because I have a time limit. Oh my God, it shouldn't be empty. Let's hope. Okay, it works. So, as you can see, we have an empty HTML. This is empty in CodePen, but in a real HTML page, you will have, for example, an empty body or any other container for future D3 project. We have a simple CSS file. As you can see, there is no magic here, but we have such property as fill. This property concerns an SVG. So let me scale it. So now, for example, we have a simple data array. It is an array of currency exchange of Belarusian ruble to United States dollar from start of November. And we shall start with traditional hello world, but we shall do it with hello visualization. I'll uncomment part of code. So, what do we have here? We create a variable info bar, and then we use D3 object and its methods. Method select. We select the body from document object model. We append div there with attribute class and with value info bar, the info bar class from CSS file. And then we use the method text. It's like text content or inner HTML in simple JavaScript. And we have the next block on our page. So, what about time? 2 minutes. Okay. So, let's create an SVG container. We also use D3 object. We select body, append to body an SVG container we talked about above, with attribute width, height, class SVG container, and append there a child G. So what is it heights and widths? Here in constants. 400. Pay attention that we don't write pixels anywhere because it will be the default value. So now we have an SVG container, 500 pixels height and 500 pixels width. The scaling, I will talk about it below. The rectangle width and rectangle margin below. And let's visualize our array. So if we shall turn all of these values to pixels, we shall not see the difference. We shall not see anything if our rectangles will be with height, for example, 1.9741 pixels. So that's why we should calculate any value to see the difference between these values. I decided to calculate the difference between them. So we shall take the minimal value of this array and calculate the difference of other values of array. So this is a function which calculates rectangle height. Rectangle, every value will be its own rectangle. So we take an element and minus minimal value in array and multiply with scaling. Scaling allows us to scale our difference. For example, we shall have a very little value here, and we multiply it with scaling, and we shall have some real result. So let's go next. Huge piece of code. Now we create rectangles. As you remember, every rectangle is a value of difference between array values. So we select rectangles. Then with these two strings we bind our data to our document object model. Then we append a rectangle with class rectangle height, which will be calculated as a difference, and with attribute width. Our width is 20 pixels and margin 500 pixels. So this result we shall get. This is a bar chart of changing currency exchange. So if we hover every rectangle, we shall see a value in our info bar. So it's just a simple example, but now you understand what for you can use D3.js. So, advanced example, it's a link, 30 seconds only. You can bind a geographic maps with D3 to document object model. Now it will be loaded and I will show you. So this is a geographical map, and you can touch on every element and the data will be changed. For example, like this, or like this, and so on. So you will be able to do that with help of D3.js. Maybe that's all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Any questions?
You say about libraries as
Yeah.
Hamster.js or
Yeah.
in your presentation. And what about Bulba.js? Is it
Bulba.js, maybe we shall we
try
can check
it out.
Bulba.js.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Yeah, funny game. Thanks. Okay, that's all. We have a short-term 15 minutes break, so we will continue in 8:35. So let's see. Yeah, the future. Краткое превью, пока все рассаживаются, что, в общем-то, ни одной презентационного дня не обходится без лекции о СВГ, вот, потому что самая наглядная, самая такая яркая презентация обычно получается в течение дня. Вот. Поэтому Федор Уморов, пожалуйста.
So, hi guys, my name is Fyodor, and my presentation is about SVG or Scalable Vector Graphics. So, have anybody tried to use SVG on website? Okay, if something will go wrong, I hope on you. So, for the beginning, I would want to start with very basic stuff. I would want to speak about raster and vector file formats and what's the difference between them and what is mean, raster and vector. So raster or bitmap is usually photographs and other images represented as a grid of individual dots of color. So it's kind of a lot of dots, and each dot has its own color, and these dots build in an image. So we have dots for raster images, and it might come from a camera, scanner, HTML canvas, etc. Vector instead built by set of curves and lines and fill colors, stuff like that, and we can get it by some tools like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape, or just simply inline it in SVG is what I would want to tell you now. So SVG is a language for describing two-dimensional vector and mixed vector raster graphics in XML. XML is extensible markup language. It doesn't have really strict rules, and every programmer can extend markup by himself. And we have couple types of objects we can see in SVG format, and usually this is vector graphic shapes, images, and text. So I would want to speak about advantages of SVG in front of raster graphic files like PNG, JPEG, and so on. So for the first, it's totally scalable. You can scale it at any size, and you will not lose in quality. Instead of raster, if you will scale it, you will be able to see pixels on your screen, like on the example right here. And I have another one good example. Here is two images, SVG on the left and PNG on the right. And do you see anything? Okay. If we will try to scale it, as you can see with SVG, it stayed the same. It looks perfect and beautiful. And PNG, you can see these pixels right here. So it's cool for responsive design. The next advantage is that we don't need to send another one HTTP request to get SVG instead of raster, because when we are writing SVG, we just inlining code inside our HTML, and our client just sending one request to get HTML, and he will get response with SVG inside, and he doesn't need to send another one HTTP request to get images, how it's usually doing. So we can save the time, and it's called latency. For countries like New Zealand is really painful because they are far from servers in Europe, and the signal can go faster than sunlight, and they spend time just for waiting request and response. So we can save time on that. And the next advantage is that we can just simply style through CSS. We can do it with PNG or something like that. And here's another one link. We have a bird right here, and in CSS we just simply changing the color, and voila, the color is red, I think. So for the next, I would want to say that another one advantage of SVG is that we can some additional kinds. How can we animate it and edit? We can animate it by animation element or JavaScript. We can do this with PNG. We can just simply use like keyframes or simple CSS. And the last one advantage, but not the least one, that SVG usually has much more smaller size, because as we know, we are representing our data in files by something, and if we use raster, it's pixels with colors, so sometimes it's much more bigger because we have to set all dots with all colors, and we have to send all this data to our browser to render. SVG instead, sometimes you just set some curves, lines, and color inside, and sometimes it's much more smaller. But if we will try to make something really great, like I will show you later, sometimes it's much more bigger than raster. So it really depends. And here is the small cheat sheet where should we use SVG and where should we use just simple pictures. And usually vector graphic is for logos, icons, and small stuff that we want to scale, but if it is small, we definitely will see pixels, so it's a good idea to build it in SVG. And I would want to show you how can we use SVG, what kind of shapes can we build, and I will show you line, polyline, rectangle, circle, ellipse, and polygon. And as Moro further said, practice makes a master. I would want to invite you with me to practice, and I want to show you how can we use it. So, as I said, if something will go wrong, I hope on you. And to build any, you see, good, okay. To build any SVG, we need a SVG tag, and to build any element inside, we just simply check which kind of element, like line, and I will, doesn't work, line, not like this, like this. Okay, we are building line, and what every line have, its start point and end point, and I will do this like x1 like 10 and y1 like 10 and x2 it's 10 right here, x2 and y2. So why did I set 4 points instead of 2? Because to build any element in SVG, we are using x and y axis, and this just simple coordinate system, as you can see. So we have set 4 points for on x and y line, like 10 and 10. Our start will be here, and 100 and 100 somewhere outside this window. So I did like this. Let's try to save it. Nothing happens. Why? Because we have add some additional attributes about styling our line, and for the first, I would want to add the color is stroke attribute. I will make it black, and we have to set how wide should be our line, and it will be like stroke width attribute. Probably it will be 1 pixel. Let's try to save it. Okay, our line is right here, and if we will check, we can see that we have kind of canvas right here. It's 150 pixels. And our line is, I want to see my line. Okay, our line is somewhere here inside. So we can add additional points for our SVG, like height for canvas, 300 pixels, and width. Height, yeah. My usual problem is why I did probably 3 or 4 videos. Height, let's try to save it. And here's our canvas. And our line inside is relative to canvas. Here's x10, y10, and x100, y100. Okay, let's try to build something more interesting. I will go to polyline. I will make another one SVG. Let's set polyline. Deleted. Okay, for polyline we have to set all points in one attribute. I will use attribute points, and we have to set all points x and y separated by commas. So it will be like something like this. I don't know what we are building, but I hope it will be beautiful. And we have to set up the same style stuff. And from polyline, we are starting to build in shapes. And if we are building shapes, it usually have fill color. So I have to set fill color inside, and I will make it as yellow. Okay, let's try to save it. It looks the same because it's difficult to set the right points to show you really something like polyline. So I will copy from my hints. Let's try to save it. Okay, here is our polyline. Okay, we can see the stroke right here, and fill color is yellow inside. I can make it none to not disappoint anybody. Okay, and I will not show you other examples like this because it's pretty simple. I just want to tell you some. What can we build? So we can build some more stuff like a rectangle. To build rectangle, we need width and height. The same styling stuff, but I deleted this. Fill color, stroke width, and stroke. To build the circle, we need the center of circle on x and y axis and radius. To build ellipse, we need the same the center of circle on x and y axis and two radius like that. And to build a polygon, we have to set up all points like for polyline, but kind of different. Okay, and if I will save it, you will be able to see all shapes here. Even I did not write it inside my HTML, as you can see. Okay, I have 3 minutes more. So what I would want to show you more. Here's a cool example. What can you build and how can you use this this stuff? Here's a Babel tower that Google programmers built. Is kind of art project, and as I said, it's totally scalable. You can scale it as much you want, and more, and you will be able to see even smallest details, even the color of hats this girl wearing. On my screen is much more better. I hope you will believe me. So we can make something that like museums where everybody can enter our website and look and see each detail. And yes, to build something great like this example, you probably need much more advanced stuff, not just simple lines and polygons, and sometimes it's used by, it's built by tools like Adobe Illustrator or Inkscape, as I showed, and you can simply embed these objects used by object tag. You just simply show the path to your images in data attribute, and you should show that type of data is image and SVG plus XML. So here's some links that you can use to study how to build SVG, how to use it. First two is courses on W3 School, the second one on HTML Academy. I would suggest you the second one is really cool stuff here. And the third one is a link to MDN documentation, where can you check all elements that you can build, like SVG element reference. Here's all elements that you can build inside your SVG, and the same basic shapes right here, and attributes that you can add and what you will see after. So if you want to improve your skills in SVG and build really cool stuff on your web app, you will definitely should check the 3 links. And yes, okay. I think that here I'm done. Thank you for your attention, and if everybody have any questions, I'm free to ask you.
Any questions? Okay, just one.
Okay. I'm sorry. Okay.
The question is, can I just can I just put my like JPEG or PNG image and convert it to SVG?
As I know, I met some websites that can do this, but I have not checked it, so I can't say definitely, but probably yes. But it will be kind of different from usual SVG.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Better this way. Yes, it's working.
Next presenter is Pavel
So
Tomaszewski.
yeah, hi everyone again. My name is Pavel. So here the topic of my today's presentation, machine learning in JavaScript. Well, probably it's not very typical for JavaScript is working with machine learning. And today we will define, is it even useful in our language? But first let's define what is machine learning overall, turn back to history to find some common things about this feature, and probably find some different and interesting stuff. So from the beginning, I think most of you heard about machine learning because it's very popular nowadays. Okay, if we ask Google what is machine learning, from the wiki we will get the following definition. Machine learning is a field of computer science that gives computer the ability to learn without being explicitly programmed. So the wiki said that way. It's an interesting fact that this term appeared more than a half century ago, in 1959. So the author of this term is Arthur Samuel. Arthur Samuel, the American scientist, he was studying some interesting stuff like pattern recognition, I think computer statistics, even game programming. So he defined machine learning as an algorithm that can learn from data and after predict data. So sounds very simple. And after Arthur Samuel, Tom Mitchell gave us a new definition of machine learning, and it sounds that way. A computer program is said to learn from experience E with respect to some class of tasks T, and performance measure P, if its performance at task in T, as measured by P, improves with experience E. Well, it sounds a little bit difficult, I think. Let me try to explain you. Imagine we have a task to create a program that can classify mails in our email as spam and not spam. So for this program, our task T is to classify our messages. Well, our program can run correctly without any experience. What can be this experience? For example, in our email, we already have, I don't know, 10,000 of messages. So all they are marked as spam or not spam. And all this, and we give all this data to our program. So our program start executing and, you know, creating some patterns. For example, if our message starts from the word sale and try out something, so our program can create pattern to figure that the messages that start from like this is definitely advertisement, so probably it's spam. So for our program, as I said, experience E is the data which this program has and which this program will get after running. And in our case, for example, this performance measure P, it can be the percentage of correctly marked messages. But, you know, probably it sounds easier now, but there are some really big difficulties about creating good working neural networks. Because, for example, we can get the unique message that fits, you know, spam pattern. And our program can think, okay, it's spam, so mark it as spam, but it's not right. So the real issue is to create the program that can correctly figure all the possible cases. And probably it cannot be, I think it's impossible, because there are infinite cases in our life that can our program meet. And as you know, machine learning studying while finding something new. So where can we use it? So it is used in a lot of areas nowadays. So data and personal security, financial tradings, healthcare, market personalization, fraud detection, recommendations, online search, natural language processing, smart cars, chatbots, and so on. Well, let's come back to our language, JavaScript. So using machine learning in JavaScript is very interesting topic to discuss because JavaScript probably not the best language for machine learning. I will explain probably why. And there are some stereotypes why JavaScript is not good for it. So the first one, probably very doubtful, I think that JavaScript is slow. Well, I can't say that it's slow. Probably JavaScript is not working the way machine learning needs, so that's why this language is not very appropriate to the machine learning. So the second stereotype is it's very difficult to work with metrics in JavaScript. So nowadays it's pretty soft because we have a lot of libraries, for example, Math.js library, and nowadays to work with metrics is not a problem anymore. So the third one is a typical stereotype that JavaScript is only for web development. I do not also agree with that, because we have Node.js, for example, and it can run a lot of things, execute a lot of programs. So I think JavaScript is not only for web development. And the fourth one, it looks pretty like the second, so the problem is already solved. So in JavaScript we have a list of really good libraries that can give us opportunity to work with the machine learning. Yeah, probably not so many libraries as we have in Python, so the main language for machine learning, but anyway. So here the list of these libraries we can use. In my example, I use Brain.js library. So also we have a lot of other libraries like Synaptic, Natural, ConvNet.js, ML.js, Nadaptic, and so on. Well, before explaining my example, I should say what I've created. So the example is very easy. Imagine you have two blocks, for example, or just the one block, with some background color. And we have a text on this block, and the text can be of two colors, either white or black. So in our program analyzes the background color and decide which color will be better for, which color of the text will be better for this background color. So the Brain.js is the library, as I said. So probably the main thing about this library that it works with input and output data. I will tell you about it a little bit later. So how can we use it? You can use NPM, Yarn, Bower, which you prefer. So it's up to you. Now we should start with our JS code, and the main part is training. So we see we have the input part and output. So the input in our case, it's like an experience we give to our program. So in our case, we have 3 experiences. So for example, for this first color, you see the RGB format. So the output will be black. So it's obviously black, 100%. So for the rest too, the output will be white. And after we create the output, and we see that the result is not like black or white. It gives us a percentage odds that in our case white color will be 99% good for this font, for this background color. Well, the numbers can be changed a little because this library works with random numbers. After in this train function we have second parameter at the hash of arguments, at the hash of options, sorry. So the first one is error trash. So the error trash, to you to understand this trash, so when we reach this trash, that means that our program work with some precise. So in our example, if error trash you see 0.005, so when our program starts learning, starts working, when we reach this trash, all the iteration stops. Even if we put 20,000 of iterations, so in my case, the program will stop on the near 1000th iteration. So the second one, we can log, the third and the fourth, we can log our results, and how often can we log it, and learning rate. So the less number is, the more precisely program learn. So and the results will be better, but it hits our our speed of working of this program. So neural network is a constructor, also has three functions, not functions, options. So the first one is activation. The activation is the function, which function we use. So there are only 4 types of them. After we have option hidden layers, I will tell you about layers a little bit later, and learning rate. So we use this learning rate when we work with stream. So activation, this parameter let you specify which activation function your neural network should use. So we have only 4 of them. Sigmoid, you see the graph, rectified linear unit, or ReLU, leaky ReLU, so there are some little differences, and hyperbolic tangent. So you also see the graph. The second parameter is hidden layers, so it's much more interesting, I think. For example, you can imagine we have input point and output point. So while our program is executing, it like pass some layers. For example, if we create the program which can recognize the car on the picture, so they can be some layers like the first one, recognize wheels, after recognize the car body, after recognize fires, windows, and so on. So while our program is working, it passes through all these layers and reach some output point. So in my case, these hidden layers array created. So we have 2 layers. First one with 3 nodes, the second with 4. So by the default, Brain.js uses only 1 hidden layer with the size of appropriate to our program. So conclusions, well, in my opinion, the JavaScript not the best language for machine learning, definitely. Probably if you want to run some complicated stuff, you'd rather change language. For example, Python works with machine learning very well, even R language. I saw the statistic that JavaScript not even in top 5 languages that use machine learning. But anyway, nowadays with the Node.js libraries, we can run machine learning, and we can run it successfully if our task is not very difficult. So I think in some cases it can be useful. For example, creating advertisement. Probably all of you met the situation when you watch for some sneakers on the online shopping, and after 3 days you see this advertisement span. So please buy it. You saw that. So in this case, we can use machine learning. And before I finish, I want to show you a little example. So in browser, it's not working. Probably I broke something. That's not good. Thank you. Here is my little program. I will show you code later if I have time. You see we can switch our color through all these RGB format. And let me zoom it a little. You see every time I switch something, I get this, I log this output data file. So it consists of two properties, in our case black and white. So in my case, my program compare which property is bigger, and after decide which color will be appropriate to this background. So you see if I can change this. Now black color is bigger than white, but you see now. So the color have switched. So the more experience we give to our program. So in my case, I have only 5 inputs. You see them probably. Here are the 5 inputs. So I can put even 1,000 inputs for program to work more precisely. And to work simple, I get this data after doing some checks, and just you see I create the output data here, run with the program, and after compare two properties, so to define which color will be better. So I think that's all for today about my topic. Probably you have some questions. Ask you if you want. Thank you for attention.
Any questions? Okay, one question.
Okay.
Advertisement in Google. I mean, you visit any websites and some icons of some advertisements, like boxes. So how do they know what to show you? Is there some neural logic?
I think we talk. Yeah, if we talk about neural networks, I think probably, for example, if we watch some goods, how they call in English, they cannot show you exactly something you watched before. They can, through the experience of the users, you always can see some recommendations. For example, on one side. So, for example, who watched this movie also watch this, and this. And through all these recommendations, I think we can implement it through the neural networks. Our backhand, what is working with advertisement, can understand which good can be probably interesting for us. So through all this experience, which it has with the other users. So I think we can use neural networks to define probably which will be better. But to not find something from cookies you watched before. You can, it get info from cookies, but show you another goods that you haven't watched before this. I think that way probably. I don't know, did I answer your question as you expected? But well.
Okay, let's leave this for Google. Okay, thanks. Okay, and our next speaker is Alexander Korolev. Я пока заполню паузу. На самом деле, да, вообще все больше и больше говорят о машин-лернинге и о том, как он помогает в жизни. Вот, но на самом деле вот мне он прям не нравится. Вот что касается рекламы, вот она меня прям раздражает. Вот прям, вот я посмотрел, вот буквально такой, подумал, шуруповерт, отличная вещь. Зашел на сайт там посмотреть, и мне там 5 дней, показывает, типа, вот лучший шуруповерт, вот ты еще такого на самом деле не видел, и вот посмотри. Вот, но я уже как бы все, закрутил свой шуруп. Подлиннее. Вот. Ну да. Еще вообще есть такая тема, да, что... А есть еще, кроме этого, и дилей. На самом деле ты там мог неделю назад посмотреть что-нибудь пикантное, да? Вот. Вот, а на работе, между прочим, тоже у тебя получается твой аккаунт, например, гугловский, да, ну, он же в браузере у тебя подтягивается, то есть у меня, например, вкладки синхронизированы или что-нибудь такое, вот, и как бы люди понимают, чем ты на выходных занимаешься. Ну, вообще нет, ну, насколько я знаю, нет. Да. Ну да. Такой, типа, 3G, короче, параллель пустил.
Oh, okay. Good evening, everybody. First of all, I need to introduce myself. My name is Sasha. Nice to meet you. I hope that you are in a good mood and still ready to listen, because I want to tell you about software license. I have only 15 minutes because I will tell you about what is software license, about different types of software licenses. Also, we will talk about free software and open source definition, and I will give you some examples of license used for free and open source software. Let's start. For the beginning, it's necessary to say that all software are intellectual property which protected under copyright. Copyright is owned by the developer or a company which produce a product. So let's find out what is software license. Software license is a legal instrument that determines acquisition, use, and distribution of software. In simple words, it's just a permission to use one, or sometimes it can be more copies, and permission to carry out any activity with software. So, in broad sense, software licenses are divided into two large groups: proprietary and free and open source software licenses. Their difference strongly affects the right of user. For example, with proprietary license, developers or distributors reserve all freedoms and rights, and with free and open source software licenses, user has substantial rights and freedoms. Okay, and there is a small mixed group which names hybrids. This group contains combination of free and open source software with proprietary licenses. Okay, what about proprietary license? The main characteristics of proprietary licenses is that you can use the program, but you are not allowed to modify, copy software, or distribute it to other. And the source code is not available, and that means you cannot see actual code written by the developers. And usually proprietary software implemented through a license agreement. The terms of software license usually have to be accepted before the program can be used, because if you don't accept the terms of license agreement, installation of program just will be interrupted. And I know that sometimes, or maybe always, we just click I agree and continue the installation of program, but I have to say that it is really important to read a software license agreement. If it's very, very boring, but anything can be written there, and you can even sell the soul to devil and no noticed it. And I must to warn you, please don't try to use a program if you didn't agree with license agreement or didn't pay for paid software. Of course, if you don't want violate the law and deal with a current. And unfortunately, if you didn't do this, You only can say bye-bye and go to competitors, for example. Okay, the good example of proprietary license will be commercialware. It's a type of license that involves the sale of software product without possible release or demonstration version. And the main goal is to get profit for development, which can be used only after full payment. And excellent example of companies which usually used a proprietary license, it will be Apple and Microsoft, of course. Okay. In order to say which license apply to free and open source software, I have to explain the difference between these concepts. Therefore, a little history. In order to preserve a model of scientific community between developers, it's necessary to ensure that source code of program it's necessary to sorry, I little worried, but it's necessary to ensure that source code of program remained accessible to reading and criticism, but with the preservation of authorship of works. And for this, in 1917, Richard Stallman formulated the principles of free software. And he clearly formulated this principle. There are also criteria on free software. Let's take a look. The Zero Freedom says that we can that the programs can be used for any purpose. First freedom says that we can learn how the program works and adapt it to any purpose. Freedom's second associated with confidentiality and says that we can disturb copies of program, for example, to our friends. And third freedoms say that we can disturb copies of our modified versions of this program. Okay. The ability to fix bugs and improve programs is most important feature of free and open source software, which simply not possible for proprietary software, even if the user detects errors and defects that are usually unknown for anyone. And only the program satisfying all four principles can be considered a free program. But it should be emphasized that these principles stipulated only available of code of program to general use, criticism and improvement, but not specified on the monetary relations associated with distribution of program. In English texts there are some confusion because the word free can be interpreted in different ways. Such software is not at all free. Free software can be distributed for money. I hope you understand that. And so the term open source sound better, yes, but open source code only indicate one freedoms, but not for these principles. And as a consequence, there are also concept of free and open came into being, and free and open source software allows to use, copy, study, modify the software, and the source code is open. It's very well, I think. Okay, let's talk about license used for free and open source software. To apply free and open source software licenses to a product, you need to add a license file with a license text to it. And I want to say that free and open source software licenses are divided into permissive and copyleft licenses. Copyleft are considered free license that requires a distribution of products under the same lines, and that is if you, for example, you use library for your project and the library has a copyleft licenses, that means that you can distribute your program under it, under copyleft licenses. But the task of permissive licenses, on the contrary, allows any possible of the product. You can use any possible license if you use permissive licenses. And I give you some examples. For example, general public license is a license which allows user has the right to change the source code and distribute the improved software as a unicorn product. However, such software cannot be sold. I will give you some excellent example. For example, Linux iOS. There are many number of versions of this iOS because Linux use a general public license, and everyone can modify it in any way, this program, and modify it by different ways. Okay, also I want to tell you about Apache license. This license for free software written by Apache Software Foundation, and Apache license requires a presentation of copyrights notice and reservation. And like other free software licenses, this license allows to user freely use software for any purpose, to distribute, to modify its programs, and even distribute modified its software version of some programs. And I want to tell you about some funny license, which names is Beerware. It's a license with permissive condition, according to which the user is entitled to use the object of license freely, but at the same time, if he so desire, he can thank the developer with a beer. And there are many version of this license, but I want to show you the most famous. This license following as long as you written this notice, you can do whatever you want with this stuff, and if you meet someday and you think this stuff is worth it, you can buy me a beer. This text contains of the beer license version 42. You see? Yeah, okay. Authored by Paul Hengen-Kamp, a Unix developer, and I don't know why 42, because there were no version 41, 40, 39, and etc. And maybe you know. Paul Hengen-Kamp said that this license was supposed to be the answer to distribute of some two license, and maybe you know that the answer of the main questions is always 42. Okay, and in conclusion, I need to say that there are many software licenses, but there is no a bad license. There is not suitable for your product. Therefore, if you want to choosing a license, think first all about fact that you are writing a license not for you, but for those who will use your code. And please think about who will use your code, how will they use it, and which license will be more convenient for them. and you. And answering this question, you can select the best license for your project. And in turns, if you want to use someone else's project for your own purpose, you need to understand limitation imposed on your by its license. Okay, I think you try to consider in this way. Maybe there are any questions? Please, no hard. And thank you for your attention.
Oh, any questions?
No. No, yes, not hard.
Can I apply a license for my GitHub project? I mean,
Yes, of course.
and it will be juridically protected if just adding this file.
Yes, of course. Your code is protected under copyright. It's first, and if you add a license file in your code, it will be better than just protected under copyright. Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. And our next and last for today's speaker is Pavel Karpovich. Yeah, with the presentation of Agile. Please don't leave this meeting. And again, my 5 minutes of dancing. Okay.
Okay, hello everyone, my name is Philip. I want to talk about Agile. Artyom has already told about Agile, but maybe I can add some information. Okay, the first slide is preface. The software industry advanced quickly in its inception in 1950s and 1960s. The need to be able to predict and control ever larger scale software projects outcome somehow led us to what has become known as a sequential stage gate waterfall software process model, usually typified by graphics such as on slide. Waterfall model. In this model, software development occurred in early series of sequential stage. Requirements were agreed. Design was created, and code follows thereafter. Lastly, the software was tested to verify its conformance to requirements and design. Problems with this model. In this model, software the model hasn't worked all the larger software projects within just a decade or two. The resulting statistics were not very pretty. For example, the off-cited Standish Group Scarce Report survey noted the following: 31% will be cancelled before they are completed. 53% of projects will be cost more than 189% of the estimation. Only 16% of projects were completed on time and on a budget. And for the largest company, only 42% of the original features and functions were completed. As an Agilist, our job is to help business migrate to the new agile paradigm as efficiently as possible. Therefore, also we can agree that we don't want to support waterfall any longer than we absolutely have to, but they have to understand and recognize that it still exists. It was about waterfall. Next we talk about agile. Okay, and what is agile? Agile is a time-boxed iterative approach to delivery that builds software incrementally from the start of the project, instead of trying to deliver it all at once. Near the end. It works by breaking down into little bits of user functionality that called user stories, prioritizing them, and then continuously delivering them in short 1 to 4 weeks cycles for called it iterations or sprints. Agile Manifesto. In 2001 year, the creators of many agile software development methodologies came together and create Agile Manifesto, summarizing their belief that it's better way to produce software. Even today, it does an excellent job of synthesizing and defining the core beliefs underlie the movement. We are uncovering better ways of development software by doing it and helping others do it. Through this work, we have come to value individuals and interactions, our processes and tools, customer collaboration over contract negotiation, working software over comprehensive documentation, and responding change over following a plan. Behind the manifesto itself are a set of core principles that serve as a common framework for all agile methods. There are 12 principles. How does it work? First, you make a list, sitting down with your customer and making a list of features they would like to see in their project. We call these things user stories, and they become to do a list of project. You size things up. Then using agile estimation techniques, you size your stories relatively to each other, coming up with a guess as to how long you think each other you will take. Thirdly, you set some prioritizes. Like most lists, there always seems to be more to do than time allows. So you ask your customer to prioritize their list of, so you get the most important stuff done first. and save the least important to the late. For late. For you start executing, then you start delivering some value. You start at the top and work your way to the bottom, building, iterating, and getting feedback from your customer. You update the plan as you go. Then you and your customer starting delivering. One of two things is going to happen. You'll discover first you are going for enough, all is good, or you have too much to do and not enough time. In this case, you have two choices. You can either to do less and cut scope recommended, or you can ask more money and push out the date. How is Agile different? Analysis, design, coding, and testing are continuous activities. You have never done these things in Agile project. So long is the features to build and the means to deliver them. These activities continue for the duration of the project. Development is iterative. Iterative development means starting with something really simple and adding it incrementally over time. It means evolving the architecture, accepting that your requirements are going to change, and continuously refining and tweaking your product as you go. Planning is adaptive. When reality disagrees with the plan, Agilists find it easy to change their plans to reality. They call this adaptive planning. Roles blue. Roles really blue on Agile project. When it's done right, joining an Agile teams is a lot like working in a mini startup. People pitch in and do whatever it takes to make the project successful, regardless of title or role. Scope can vary. By fixing time, budget, and quality and flexing around scope, Agile teams maintain the integrity of their plans, work within the means, and avoid the burnout, drama, and the dysfunction traditionally associated with our industry. Requirements can change. Traditionally, change has been shunned of software project because of its high perceived cost laid in the game. Agile challenges this notion and believes the cost of change can be relatively flat. Working software is a primary measure of success. The rate at which teams can turn their customer wish into working software is how Agile measure productivity. Project plans, test plans, and analysis artifacts are all well, good, but Agilists understand they in themselves are not value to the end customer. User stories. User stories are features our customers might one day like to see in their software. Agilists know their customers are going to change their mind, and that's okay. User stories form the basis of all the Agile plan. They are sized and prioritized like any other wish list. You simply start at the top and work your way down on nothing big or complex. We get them by sitting down with our customer and ask him a lot of questions. In this story gathering workshop, we draw lots of pictures, mock-ups, storyboards, and anything that helps, and break the functionality down into simple, easy to understand words and phrases our customer understand. Roadmap and backlog. The results of release planning are used to update the product or solution backlog. which provides a sense of how the enterprise hopes to deliver increasing value over time. The roadmap consists of a series of planned release dates, each of which has a theme, a set of objectives, and feature set. The team backlog, typically called a project or product backlog, consists of all user stories the teams has identified for implementation. Each team has its own backlog, which is maintained and prioritized by team's product owner. Estimation. Sizing stories relatively, means not worrying about exactly how big a story is, and worrying more how this story compares with others. This style of estimation, relative and absolute, forms the cornerstone of agile planning. By sizing our stories relatively and feeding actual back into our plan, we can make really accurate predictions about the future while based on what we've done in the past. Sprints. And agile iterations in a short 1 to 4 week period where a team take a couple of their customers' most important user stories and build them completely as running testing software. This means everything happens during an iteration. Analysis, design, coding, and testing, it all happens here. The beauty of working this way is very couple weeks to customer get something of great value, working software. It's also a great way to track progress. Roles in agile team. Product owner. In summary form, the product owner role is responding for the following: working with product manager, business analysis, customers, and other stakeholders, maintaining the backlog and setting priorities, setting objectives for the iteration, and elaboration stories. Scrum or Agile Master is responsible for 4 things: facilitating the team's progress toward the goal, leading the team's efforts in continuous improvement, enforcing the rules of the agile process, and eliminating impediments. And the developers and testers, the rest of the core includes the developers and testers who write and testing the code. Since this is an agile team, the team size typically include about 3-4 developers plus 1-2 testers who ideally co-located and work together to define, build, test, and deliver stories into the code baseline. And last slide, the agile approach. As a result of my speech, I want to highlight the feature of the agile method. Using the agile, quality improves because testing starts from day one. Visibility improves because you halfway through the project when you have built half the features. Risk is reduced because you're getting feedback early, and customers are happy because they can make change without paying exorbitant costs. That's all. Thank you for attention.
One question. Yes, one question left. If no one, I will ask. Okay. What kind of agile software do you know, and what you prefer and why?
Kind of agile.
Maybe some websites or something like this.
Difficult questions. Yes, I know only Scrum, and I can't say why Scrum, because I don't use these methods, and I don't have experience.
I hope so. Okay, thank you for today's participation and attention. It's all for today.